Hello and welcome to season 5, episode 16 of Dualistic Unity. I am staying interested in reality, interested in myself, interested in exploring what the potentials are of reality through myself, and through remaining interested in things. Everything has a bit of excitement to it. Every experience, everything I dig into, and I'm finding that the more interested I am in things, the more freedom and willingness to let go of my current perceptions of myself that I'm willing to have.
And in that state of freedom, of just being willing to be interested for your own reasons, for yourself, for the fact that it's your existence, this is your time. It's literally your present moment. Without you, it couldn't be. In that state, you find yourself thinking about yourself less, thinking about everything else a little bit more. All of a sudden, you're not really the most important part of everything that's happening. It's everything that's happening. That's the important part. And you find yourself talking to people more freely, expressing yourself more freely, questioning yourself with a little less fear, finding yourself with a little less hesitation. And that's when you start to learn things. That's when you really start to see how we are all very much like synapses within one large brain. We are all transferring information and insight back and forth to one another. And the only thing that gets in the way is our fear, which is always based on the illusion that we're separate. And so the more we let that go, the more we learn. And that's what's led to the community as it's currently being built in the dualistic unity realm, as well as the community that's being founded around the podcast of one of our guests today, Anastasia Rjanov, who we have had on the podcast before. She is the host of the Insanity podcast. In her journey, she has run into Gary Lee, who is the founder of the Optimum College. And between the two of them, they have started hosting their own roundtables. They've started forming their own community, or rather letting it form around the conversation that they're having for their own sake. And those roundtables are going to be available in the near future as Optimum Insanity, which I absolutely love. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Anastasia first, because of course we haven't seen her in forever. It's really nice to have you back. If you can catch us up a little bit on what you've been up to. And then Gary, we're going to get you to tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to the community. We have a large following of people who are very much interested in just furthering, I guess, their own potential, realizing more of what they can do. And so I'm very excited to ask you about Optimum College. But first, Anastasia, welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back. Since our last chat, I made more episodes, more Insanity episodes, and it kind of became a thing now. So when I just started, and when we had our first chat, it was really rough. So I just had my first and maybe second episode online. And it's all about questioning our self-concept, questioning who we are, what we are doing, who we believe to be, where we want to go, what could make us happy. Because I've realized that the stories that we tell ourselves, actually something that you talk about a lot, the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves, our self-concept determines how we perceive the world, and if we are happy or unhappy with who we are and what we experience. And I wanted to question that in a very light and fun way, because I thought it's a philosophical topic, and sometimes it has a little bit of a weight for people, so they think, oh, maybe it's too complicated, maybe I don't get it, I don't know if this is something that I want to hear more about. But I think everyone loves comedy, and I thought, okay, and I am a being, not even a person. I would say that the essence of Anna is something that is very funny and that needs entertainment. And I can talk about these kind of things in a fun way. And I think it's very approachable for everyone. So everyone wants to know, who am I? And it shouldn't be a distant topic. It shouldn't be something that you are scared of asking yourself. And that's why I started to interview comedians, people who make their living on memes, on telling jokes, on pranking people, and who think that it's fine to make your living having a job that is not common. So it's not a regular office job. Sometimes it's just going crazy. It's just trying new things. It's being brave and following your calling, no matter if it's strange or funny or serious or not serious. And I thought, yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's try that. And interviewing a lot of people who come from the spiritual community, from the philosophy community, and also just comedians and weird people, like weird guys who have something interesting to say. And yeah, so
That's awesome. I'm excited because I know the last time we spoke, you were just getting into podcasting on a larger level, and you were really digging into the experience of just talking to people about their lives and understanding that we all have an undercurrent
yes.
beneath what we're doing. So I'm really excited that's continuing on for you.
I love it. I love it. And in the beginning, I thought, every conversation will be so fun and light. So I didn't really know how to prepare an interview, how to make this all work. And I've learned a lot. I mean, I've learned a lot through our chats. Then I had chats with Gary, I think 5 or 6 of them. And I've realized, okay, so it's kind of easy to talk to you guys. Why isn't it always easy with everyone? And how to make that work and how to make people more comfortable. I think it's a skill that you develop also when you podcast with people, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. There's a flow to it. There's a balance that's found, but it's found through exploring new experiences. And there's so many times where, we think we're in a certain spot and have an assumption about ourselves and how we deal with things, but then we get thrown into an entirely new environment or do something else, or we think, oh, I'm really good at interviewing or something, say for example, on a podcast, but then, someone else comes on. It's like, oh, maybe I was good at interviewing a type of person who was more open, but then someone who's a little more closed off, that's a whole different thing. Yes, it's still in the realm of interviewing, but like I was focused here, and then there's this as well. And so it's interesting how often we can get caught on a certain perception of ourselves that then kind of creates this assumption in other situations that we're going to be like that. And either on a positive perspective or a negative perspective, like the new situations are always opportunities for growth. And I think the more willing you are to not hold on to a specific narrative, the more easily you're able to find out, like, oh, this is impacting my potential. This is a way to explore another side of myself. And not thinking so much about yourself or judging yourself along the way makes that process so much fucking easier, right?
Yeah.
So much easier when we're not holding on to those assumptions.
A lot. And I've learned a lot about myself. I think more during the last year probably than ever before, because you actually see yourself on camera. You can rewatch it. You can judge yourself all the time for what you said, for how you sound, for whatever. And I thought so many times, oh God, Anna, what did you say? Like, the people think you're completely dumb. Oh God. But you kind of go through it, and you learn to live with it and to take yourself even less seriously. And it's cool. It's a really good thing.
Well, it's really nice to have you back, Anastasia. And for everybody listening, if you haven't checked out the episode where Anastasia joined us last time, it is season 4, episode 16, otherwise called The Light. It is definitely worth a listen. Go and check it out. That said, Gary, it's really nice to have you here. Gary, you are the founder of the Optimum College, and I have a lot of questions as to what that is. So I'm just going to let you go and let us know what it is we should know about the Optimum College and why you got involved.
Yeah, that episode with Anna on Dualistic Unity, The Light was the name of it. That's one of the reasons why I fell in love with her. And I'm actually in Germany right now. We're in the same house right now, just in different rooms. I flew halfway across, I think, as far away from Seattle, Washington as you can possibly get. And I'm in Essen, Germany right now. And so Anna and I met through TikTok. And I'd founded Optimum College, which it sounds like so impressive. College is in a community of colleagues. Okay. That's the original definition of the word. Community of colleagues. So it's Optimum College, an online community of colleagues dedicated to exploring life, the universe, and everything to reach our optimum potential. And I was making videos on TikTok. Anna started following me, and then I followed back the first 10,000 people who followed me, and so Anna was presumably in that 10,000, and I watched the videos of the people I follow. I like that, and Anna's videos kept on popping up in my feed, and by then I'd already started podcasting with people, and I thought, she'd be such a great guest for the podcast. And we podcasted again. And before you know it, I'm head over heels and I'm asking her out. And which is totally insane because she lives halfway across the world. But hey, in this connected planet with planes, I guess it's not that big of a deal. And I know she's a huge fan of Dualistic Unity, and she got me into it. And I've been watching episodes now. And yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here. I do have a quick question, and then I'm going to pass this to Andrew. What, if you can narrow it down, and I understand I'm asking you to narrow down something that takes, I'm sure, a long time to understand and is the foundation of what you're doing at Optimum College. Can you just give me a short summary of what the Optimum Theory of Everything? And I understand how ridiculous that sounds.
No, it's not. It doesn't sound ridiculous at all. It's part of it. It's the main course. So you actually did research. You looked it up.
Well, yeah, you're here chatting with us, so of course.
Heck yeah. Okay. The Optimum Theory of Everything. Okay. So before I started Optimum College, I was a school teacher. I was an applied STEM curriculum director in public education. And then I got promoted. I was in charge of the applied STEM curriculum for 11 high schools in the state of Arizona. And so that kind of, it was already in me to develop curriculum. And I wanted to make a curriculum that was like a philosophy, like a self-contained, almost like an old school, like Socratic, like philosophy of everything that was just self-contained, that made sense of everything. And physics, how life began. And this is going to sound completely nuts. I know it sounds completely crazy. I truly believe, and fully aware of how insane this sounds. And you can say, I don't believe you, or I don't agree with that, or I think you're wrong, Gary. That's completely okay. I genuinely think I'm the first person in human history to simulate the four forces of physics from one equation. I did it in MS Excel. And you don't have to take my word for it, because I've open sourced the programming and shown videos and simulations, and it all builds on that. So this idea of what is the source code of the universe? And yes, I know how insane that sounds. I know it sounds completely crazy. And debating these ideas is part of what Optimum College is all about. You can come to Optimum College and be like, Gary, that is nuts. And I'll be like, why is it nuts? And we can have this back and forth. And that's the Optimum Theory of Everything. It's a 2-hour video textbook. Anna's watched it. Anna's actually the first certified optimist of Optimum College. She was the first one. It was new. And we podcasted. It came up during our podcast. And I was like, hey, you want to try it? I haven't even had anyone complete the program. She's like, sure. And it is very dense. It is not easy. It is not woo-woo. Like the Optimum Theory of Everything video is, it is, I genuinely believe maybe the most cutting edge single course out there. And AI, like artificial intelligence, like this was years ago. Like now we talk about AI. When that course first came out, it wasn't even big like it is now. It was very cutting edge. She passed the course. She understood this whole video textbook. Anna is a very smart cookie. Very smart cookie. Did that answer the question? I'm sorry. I'm very stoked
More or less. No, that's great. Specifically, again, and I'm not going to claim by any means to be a scientific person. I'm definitely not. My forte isn't math. We'll just say that. So I find it really intriguing because, again, this is the holy grail of science, right? Is to come up with an equation that kind of explains all of the physical conditions, everything that we go through, the rhyme and reason of all of this. And so I find it fascinating. I find it absolutely interesting. I have one more question. I'll pass it over to Andrew. You mentioned that this came out quite a few years ago. When did you create the video exactly?
Late 2018. I first released it in 2019. The TikTok blew up 2020. About a year and a half ago, the TikTok blew up. Now we've got 80,000 followers. I had no expectation of that, and it just blew up. The TikTok blew up, and yeah. Sorry for being so.
No, I love
short summary.
I love the idea that it's a college of people to express their ideas, to go back and
Correct.
forth, that they don't have to agree with you, just to understand what it is you're trying to at least introduce. So it's more or less about the dialogue and about, again, the continued processing of information, which is what I started talking about at the beginning of the episode. So no, that answered the question for me. I appreciate it. I'll pass it over to Andrew.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting, that exploration. It sounds like, a lot of what Optimum College is about, from my understanding, is exploring reality through exploring ourselves, because there's no difference between those things, right? And so I'm curious with the Optimum Theory of Everything, and you mentioned the density of that and how much is involved. How much of a component is the focus at Optimum College on theory of everything and kind of everything surrounding that versus, exploring your potential? I know there's a project, there's an end project that you got to work on that you can actually utilize. You can utilize other graduates from Optimum College. And really, it seems to me like it's an exploration of our humanity, in a sense, like what our human potential is, as opposed to, I think as a society, we've kind of gotten caught in, focusing very much on ourselves. What's best for me? I'm going to live, my life in this way, and not so much of a focus on the exploration of humanity. What's possible when I'm not focused so much on the wall of myself, but actually just want to find out what maybe this is all about and what exploring it is. So was the Optimum Theory of Everything, was that almost like an example of one of those projects that come from the curriculum of Optimum College, or is it a big component of the curriculum?
It's the biggest part. It started as a way. I had to get this out. It was something, I've told this story before. In 2015, 2016, I kind of melted down. I had an awakening. That is when I really realized I can't just be a drone anymore. I can't be an NPC. That it doesn't matter the left or the right or whoever. These people who are our quote unquote authorities, these adults in charge, they are mad. They are mad, and they are like leading us off a cliff. And I have to understand how this reality works from first principles. And so it started with this idea. I have to understand how things work. I can't just have these quote unquote adults tell me how it is anymore. These people are insane. I have to understand how it is for myself. And I went back and just hit the books for a lot of this stuff I'd already been thinking about. Universe in a Nutshell. Stephen Hawking. Anna's got that book too, by the way. And she's got a real cool book collection. And a lot of these ideas I've already been thinking about. But I really dedicated time, over a year, to filling in the gaps of that, and doing deep diving all of this, and creating a framework, a philosophy that I didn't need these people to tell me how it is anymore. Like, thank you very much. I have a pretty good idea for myself, and I can now look at evidence and logic and reason and integrate that with this theory. The theory of everything is the core component of Optimum College. And then the idea is that you have to understand this theory, and only understand it. Agreement is never required. And I have people all the time tell me they think I'm wrong, and that's okay, as long as they understand the theory. And then projects. So I figure it's not enough to tell people what you know, you want to show them. So you want to apply these ideas. And so Anna's project was the podcast. I know she was going to do it anyway. But it's a social proof. It's a way of showing the world, hey, like, I'm actually doing stuff here. Like, I'm actually walking the walk. I'm not just talking the talk. That's the idea with the project. And then it became like, well, there should be a project that is like a college project, like that anyone can just participate in. And that became the VR studio. And it's a real VR game called Optimum Championship. And yes, it really was good. I don't know if your listeners are going to hear the beginning, but I really am making it. Anna's seen it. Anna's played it. It's very real. And my laptop bricked 30 minutes before our conversation. That's why I'm on my cell phone.
That was fantastic timing. Absolutely. So to our listener, just so you know, Gary was nice enough to join us despite technical issues today. So we're glad that he could do so. As he was mentioning, he is developing a VR game, and that processing of the game required more than his computer was able to bear. Now, as somebody who renders all the video episodes of Dualistic Unity, I feel that pain very much. So I appreciate where he's coming from. While he addresses his technical issues, though, I'm going to pass it back over to Anastasia. Anna, it's so nice to hear that you've teamed up with Gary. It sounds like you're using this more or less as a platform for your own growth. What's been your experience with the optimum theory of everything as a whole? Because again, we share an interest in the subjective nature of all of this in terms of, here I am existing. You know, the things that happen around us is a different question. So how has this affected your path?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. So I had some chats with Gary. I think the first or second one, he said that he has this theory out, and it's a long textbook, 2.5 hours. And I thought, okay, let's see what it is, you know. So I was just on the website, just watching this 2.5 hours video, which felt like a documentary for me in the beginning. So I also thought, okay, what is it actually about? Because I didn't understand. Is it one topic? Is it two topics? Like, what is it about? And it was literally about everything. So it started with like Albert Einstein, you know, and his theories, going through different scientist theories, and Gary's thoughts on it. And it was interesting because it's literally what you make out of existing theories. So you have physicists who talk about the ether, or about the idea, what it could be, and then his thoughts about it. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, because if I had a thought about it, it would be very similar, or the things that I thought in my past were very, very similar. And I've never talked to anyone who shared this very, very specific thoughts. And it started like that, with dark matter, with you know, what did we have? The history of humanity, AI. It is really a package of topics that are all about the universe, about technology, about people, human relationships, and it covers everything a little bit. And and that made it very interesting for me, because also you sometimes have documentaries or movies about one topic, and you have like 2 hours on one topic, and I get tired, you know. So I'm like, okay, I got your point, cool, but where are we going? So it's the rest is a lot of opinion and deep dive, and it's also nice. But I think the cool part about this video was that when I thought this thought is interesting, or this idea is interesting, I had the option to research myself and to deep dive myself into that specific topic that I thought is interesting for me. And that's what I did. And I thought, okay, that's so cool that the opinions match so deeply in so many points. And although I bring a lot of different takes on things, so I kind of, on one perspective, I think opinions don't matter. I don't have an opinion, and I don't care, you know. And then in another version of Anna is super interested in everything and wants to have an opinion, but the main Anna doesn't take it seriously. But still, it's interesting for me. My brain wants to work with things. I even told Gary, like, there was a time when I thought my brain needs to solve problems and it needs to engage with things. So I solved Sudokus the whole time because my brain needed to do something. And so I don't really need opinions, but it's like a hobby. I find something interesting and I want to see what could be my take on it, what feels real, what feels that it is that it's familiar to me. Or, you know, when people sometimes have values or opinions and they don't really know where it comes from, so they just repeat. And I like to observe and to feel for myself what feels like me, related to different topics. And this is my thing, like scientist theories, or science theories, or human relationships, self-development. I find it very interesting. It's just that many people have takes on it that I don't relate to. And in that case, it was very Anna what I watched there. And it influenced me in a way that I was just fascinated that someone had my thoughts. So this was mainly it, I think. And that I really thought, okay, maybe maybe there are more people who share these thoughts, or maybe I can talk with more people or podcast with more people about that kind of stuff. And then I found myself in interviews where I asked the question and I had a guest looking at me like, you know, like in SpongeBob with big eyes. And I thought, okay, I went too far. I see. And it's okay. But yeah, it was interesting for me to see. I think I've learned more about myself through that.
That's incredible. Yeah, because those opinions too, like those opinions are always going to be there. It's kind of like the mechanism of the brain, right? It's just how seriously we take them. And I love Gary with the theories in Optimum College. It's like kind of a framework, right? But it's not an answer. And so much of college is it's not teaching you how to think; it's teaching you what to think, right?
That's true. I would say that there is an answer. It is like very much like, this is my opinion, and I feel very strongly about these opinions, but at the same time, you don't have to agree with any of it. So there are answers there, but a big part of it is that, like, unlike a normal school, you never have to agree with any of it. And I don't test anybody on it. I only test for understanding, not for agreement or anything like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. It seems like, because given everything going on, like how archaic the collegiate system is, like it's exciting to hear there's something out there that's kind of going against the grain in that sense. Because I know, I went to college, did the 4 years, and have not used very much, if anything, from that experience, despite doing all the classes, the courses, and all of those things. It's just not as applicable to reality as it has been. And so in your experience, Gary, with growing up, and I'd love to hear just a little bit about your background going through the schooling system, some of the things that maybe you started to realize later on that drove you to questioning the schooling system, and then eventually creating your own sort of unique experience.
Oh yeah, this was a long time coming. I was falling asleep in classes when I was starting in high school, I would say. And instead of being like, hey, maybe these classes are kind of boring, they said, oh, it's not, it couldn't possibly be the teacher's fault. It couldn't possibly be a teacher deficit disorder. No. Gary must have a disability. He must have attention deficit disorder. Even though I was reading books at home that were like decades beyond what we were learning at school, right? At home, I would go home and like actually learn. I'd go home and read books like Universe in a Nutshell, like I mentioned, but not just that. A lot of books, so many books about everything. Steven Pinker, I love Pinker, How the Mind Works. Ray Kurzweil. These are the books I was reading at the time when, I couldn't even tell you what we were learning in school. It was like a daycare. Like school was like a daycare. And so it was like, this is nonsense. And I didn't even want to go to college. I went to college because I felt like, and I'm very thankful, that I had parents that cared to be like, go to college, Gary. We can help you out. We can help you go to college, and all this stuff. I'm very thankful for that. But at the same time, it just felt like something that it was just expected. When learning, real learning, you don't have to tell people to do it. They're just going to do it. Like, we like to learn. People like to learn. And the idea with Optimum College is to really like lean into that. Like, I think we all like to learn about stuff, and just let people create an environment where, like, I'm going to set the example. I like to learn, and here are some crazy ideas I have. What are your crazy ideas? And, just like, let's just lean into it. Yeah.
Kind of like the original idea of academia, like with Socrates and the Grove, and just sitting around shooting the breeze going, have you thought about this though? And that's really it. What I enjoy about that is the lack of needing to get to an end answer or the end result, because when are we ever really going to know? But that's the fun, right? Is to go back and forth. So you had mentioned, and again, this is kind of the core of our conversation, or at least very much it was when Anna was here within the show last time, that there is a philosophical component to what you're talking about at the college. I was wondering if you could elaborate a bit on that.
Well, the course is very like, I don't know how I use this word philosophical. Anna is much more philosophical than I am. She's much smarter about that stuff than I am. And she's got a stack of books on philosophy on her shelf. And I'm much more like, I'm very STEM. And the course is very STEM. It's very science, math, tech, and Anna's very philosophical. What draws me to philosophy though is just the idea that it's okay to question. Like it almost feels like a radical act sometimes. Like, yeah, we can actually question, we're allowed to do it. We can do it, and it's called philosophy. And it's not just something that was a bunch of old guys did who are in graves now. It's something you can do now. You can do it right now. You can question right now.
Absolutely. This is something that always kind of got to me growing up, was the fact that philosophy was one of the last things that we're allowed to learn on our path through academia or through education. And it's by far one of the most important ones, because it's not necessarily about learning philosophy so much as understanding that thinking about life is something that has value. Thinking about your existence for yourself is something that has value. And this is why people get upset about, if a tree falls in the forest, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's not about the answer though. It's about all the possible answers. It's about the question itself. It's not about settling on, well, it makes a sound if it hits a beaver. Like, none of that matters. It's about how many different directions can you go. And the act itself of questioning opens up how many things about you, including the nature of the questioner, which goes, I guess, towards a question for Anna, the subjective experience. In all of this, how would you tie our existence in with this fundamental theory of everything in terms of our subjective experience, the observer and the observed relationship? Because that is something that I'm deeply curious about. Science, unfortunately, tends to dodge around it. It being the big problem of consciousness, as it were. Where is it? Why is it functioning? What are we doing? And why are we doing it? And I know this is something that's deeply interesting to you. So I imagine that running into Gary must have, I guess, sparked quite a few insights, or at least quite a few new questions even.
Anna was smart before she met me. But, yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting for me because in general, I feel very drawn to people who try to explain things, although I believe that everything that can be explained already is, not by our brain, not by our physical mind. I feel the more we try to explain it with the physical mind, sometimes the further away we can get, not always. But I thought that Gary has this nice mix of observing and trying to get it, and sometimes also just relaxing and letting it come to you, because I like to separate between different kinds of knowledges. One knowledge is from books and one knowledge is knowledge. But let's things that you try to understand, let's call it knowledge. It makes it easier. So you try to learn something from books, and then you have all the data and you think this is knowledge. The other knowledge that I like feel way more than that one is when I don't think. You can call it meditation, you can call it grounding, you could call it just be yourself in the present moment. But these are the moments when I sometimes know things that are true for me. It doesn't mean that it's knowledge for everyone, but as much as I know that I exist, and if it's the only thing that I know, there are things that I also know. For example, that I like something, that I love something, that I even sometimes, what would make me happy? How could I help someone? Does someone have an issue right now? And these are just things that I know. I wake up in the morning and I kind of feel that there is something I need to talk about right now, or someone needs my help. It sounds really a bit woo-woo and strange, but this is the kind of knowledge I'm talking about. It's an emotional knowledge that is just there. And if I'm real, then this is real as well. And maybe on the same level, I can sometimes say this theory is pretty close to what I feel to be true, what is my truth about the universe, and another one isn't. And I think if I would come from a direction where I try to understand everything with my mind, so trying to figure out numbers, trying to like be involved in all that kind of, I would say logic stuff, I would get there as well. But it feels easier for me to come from my emotional state or from my sheer presence, because when I'm there, I feel like I have the knowledge, and then just some things, they just click. and I know, okay, this one is correct. This one probably isn't. And it is a simple feeling that I can relate on. And it's really insane to talk about it, because I also used to say I know nothing, and I kind of believe it. I know nothing. But if I know that I exist, and this fact I must know, otherwise it's a too big paradox. So I know that I exist. And based on that, there are things that I also know and that click with me.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's the practice of getting out of your own way that allows you to be what it is you are, which is ultimately existence. You know, we are intelligence in flow. Everything from cellular and upward is an exercise in intelligence on a different scale. And that is ultimately what I am, or you are. So that leads me kind of to the next part of this, because I love the fact that there are two distinct I guess, questions here. There's the emotional content, which you're talking about, Anna, and then there's the reality that we are all experiencing, where there are certain things that we also know, like the experience of gravity, right? The experience of light, the experience of sound, you know, the experience of vibration. These are all things that, whether you have a consensus audience or not, whether there's people agreeing with you or not, you are experiencing. And so the question is, why? What is happening there? Why are those things happening in the same way as why am I happening? Why am I having these insights? Why do I have the capacity to get in my own way and lower my own intelligence just through confusion and attachment and fear? You know, why is all of this playing out? And so there is some connection between the two. Again, the observer and the observed are one, right? In observing physical reality, we are also observing our own awareness in action in a physical form, because there is no inner and outer, right? They're just perspectives. So I love the marriage of your two conversations. Absolutely. If somebody wanted to join one of your roundtables in the future, how is it that they would get in touch with you to do so?
Well, it's new. We just had we've only had a couple so far. Sundays, noon Pacific time, and reach out to Anna to coordinate.
Perfect. That's excellent.
And again, Anna's much nicer.
This episode will be available in the next week or two, and so you'll have some time before people start reaching out to you, but I'm sure you will have more than a few people who will want to join in this conversation, as again, it's not about getting to some answer, it's about being the question. It's about being the process of watching our own intelligence in flow together, as we can come together with less ego in the way, with less of our own need to be right in the way, which is, again, Gary, why I love the foundation of Optimum College, which is that you don't need to agree. You just need to understand what the fuck I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Ray, how did you get into this stuff?
That is a very long question. About half my life ago, I guess you could say I was in the worst possible situation for a long time. And it was either wake up to the fact that I don't know, that there's so much that I don't know, or settle on false certainty, which just also happened to be all of my suffering and pain. And so it dawned on me that I was carrying a story instead of accepting that I don't really know. And that was it. I was just trying to know. And so in accepting that I don't, I found freedom, and everything's changed for me ever since. I've gotten better at things. I've gotten better at talking to people. Life is going to become easier, and it's just an ongoing practice. But yeah, that's why I enjoy the foundation of what you're both doing, which is the ongoing conversation, because I saw a lot of what I talk about 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago. It's not that I've seen any new insights since then. If anything, I've just learned how to integrate them better. I've just learned how to embody them better, to make it less intellectual, less so much cerebral and philosophical, more a matter of application and actually seeing it rather than just talking about it. And so I see the value in what you're both doing. I'm very excited to introduce the community to all of you.
Thank you. You guys do retreats. I know Anna's been trying to go to one, and now that we're a couple, maybe, who knows?
We absolutely do. Actually, I'm glad you brought this up. Anna, we're going to be coming to the Netherlands as of November 11th, and we're going to be leaving on November 20th. So with any luck, we will see you there. Even if we can't get you to that retreat, we would definitely like to invite your followers to come out to the retreat, because if they enjoy the conversation with you, then they're definitely going to enjoy the conversation at these retreats. This is our largest community event. We're going to have 34 guests at this point. So I'm very excited for sure. And if you can drop in, even for a day or two, to come and visit, that would be fantastic. We would love to see you. Aside from that, Gary, a lot of our mini retreats are in the United States. We've got one coming in Virginia Beach in February, and then we're in California in April, Colorado, June, and then we're going camping next summer.
Are you traveling to all these?
Indeed.
Wow.
Yeah. No, and
Good job.
just from my perspective, yeah,
That's
with the
awesome.
retreats, it's fun having this conversation and talking about, something like Optimum College, because I see a lot of overlap, a lot of similarities between what you're doing there and what we're doing at the retreats, kind of the combo of
What's it
everything
like?
you guys have been discussing.
What are the retreats like, Andrew?
That's a
I'm
great
sure I'm saying
question.
your name. I know that sounds weird. I'm saying your name because I think it's good, because I haven't said you guys' names yet. And so
Oh.
it sounded really weird when I said that. Now I'm
No,
curious.
yeah, kind of irrelevant anyway. But yeah, no, the retreats are incredible. I mean, and to pin it on one specific thing is always tough, because we've had what 7 or 8 now, 8, I think. Yeah, a number, and
Wow.
each one is unique. Each one is different, because they're informed by the people who come. They're informed by the mentalities that are brought to the retreat, and so each one has been inherently entirely unique. I think there's a and not even to say a framework wouldn't even be doing it justice at all, because there isn't a framework. There's not an agenda. There's not a specific way that we try to curate them going, because so much of it is having faith in yourself. And so us going into it is very much maintaining or doing our best to have that faith in ourselves, and have that faith in our ability to adapt and pivot. And if we go into something having an idea of like, this retreat's going to go this way, it should go this way, we're going to be caught off guard way more often.
Tell me like what was the last one like? Walk me through it. Or a good one, a good memory for you.
Would you like me to go with this one?
If you'd like, I can kick it off.
You kick it off.
Yeah. So it's interesting, because there was a certain degree of intensity. Some things played out that weren't, if I had an idea of anything going in, they didn't play out like that, essentially. But it's interesting how with everything, like, we've had in past retreats, the power go out or shit go right. And like, it's so funny how I've been in other situations with other groups of people, and everyone freaks out, everyone bugs out. They're like, oh, we gotta handle this, deal with this. And
I wouldn't know about that, Andrew. Everything always works perfectly for me. I wouldn't know anything about some kind of technology outage.
So that's a practice in and of itself. When things come up, like, how do you respond? How do you react? And so there's always going to be certain situations, maybe internal situations, a discomfort that you're feeling. Maybe there's an external experience that's going on that you're then, because there isn't internal external, they're kind of simultaneously happening. And so there's a beauty in seeing differing experiences and being able to face those things. But at the retreats, there isn't so much a pull or an expectation for anyone to be anything. Like, Ray and I have our roles to a degree, given that we're the ones setting it up and everything. But even for us, and that's been a thing for me, that I've been, each and every retreat, I think, letting go of the assumption that I should be anything, because that just kind of restricts me and confines me into my own little specific box. That throughout each retreat, I'm realizing more and more, like, oh, even though we're maybe the ones who are setting it up, selling the tickets, have the podcast and everything, like, it's just as much an experience for us to be willing to let go of certain perspectives of ourselves. And so it's just a time and a place for us to be fully ourselves, and not let go a bit, kind of set our expectation of ourselves, our perception of ourselves aside, so that we can explore what our potential is beyond the familiar narrative that we have of ourselves. And so it really is just a space to do that. There isn't so much an agenda. We don't live by the clock as much. So it really is just a ability to be free in yourself, feel free in yourself, and find out what's possible, and allow certain uncomfortable things that maybe you've been avoiding by trying to be something to come up, and then look at them for what they are, because those are always impacting us, but we rarely have the space to allow them to come up and actually look at them for what they are, which then allows us to, let go of our perspective, our very specific perspective of them. But that's a little for me, and I'll pass it to Ray to fill in anything I missed.
This is a great question. So, and as you'll both know, and Anna, I know we talked about this in the light, the way that we deal with one another is often, well, it is just it corresponds to the way we deal with ourselves. And so the more agitated or the more nervous or the more anxious, the more we feel like we should be something, or worried how people feel about us, we're trying to get somewhere, trying to get away from somewhere, doing all that stuff, the more it comes across in everything that we do and say. And this is true on social media, but it's especially true in person. And so while Andrew and I make a lot of episodes and we do a lot of social media stuff, talking and trying to communicate insights and trying to communicate certain things, and that has an impact on the people that we're talking about. The fact is that they're just words. They're just words that are coming from a state of mind, and that state of mind can be shared just by sharing one's presence, just by sharing a room with somebody. And so the retreats really are an opportunity for people to come and experience what it is to live with us for those several days. And by that, I mean just to see how it is we live, how we exist, you know, that the things that we're talking about are things that we actually practice, that when we say things like, you know, that doesn't have to bother you, and then somebody comes to the retreat thinking that they're annoying, and after a day or two of realizing that nobody's bothered, not because of them, but because they're personally responsible themselves, then it sticks. It has an impact on these people because the environment has changed enough for them to see how much they have changed outside that environment. That was the most interesting thing about this last retreat, is that we had one individual who came with an intention, and that intention was completely selfish. And what they encountered was a room full of people who were actively practicing being selfless because they were focused on their own responsibility. Whereas most of us exist in a world where we're surrounded by the selfish, trying to be selfless. And so it was such a contrast for everybody there that once they left, they went back to their lives. They're like, I understand what I'm doing now. I understand there's nothing wrong with me. In fact, I understand that this is just a different mentality that's surrounded by one that is very afraid and has been for generations. Right. And so the retreats really are a chance for us to all come together and realize how much work we've already done by just getting away from the back and forth, the push and the pull of the egotistical influences around us the rest of the time.
I love that. I saw some comments, I think, on Andrew's post. It was that there were some people, because you reposted it, who were expecting a time schedule, you know, or that you have a plan or something. And I mean, I understand where it comes from, because I think there are many people who, or there are creators who offer retreats, and they have like, okay, at 8 we are doing yoga, at 9 we are running down up the hill, then we have our cereals, then we do yoga again. And I thought it's kind of cool and refreshing that you don't have that, and that you leave people alone to figure out what it is that they actually are. Because when we are busy, so we are busy in our mind with doing certain practices, then again we are outside. And if we know, okay, maybe, yeah, I buy a ticket and I go there and I have no other job than just existing, I think that's very, very relaxing, calming, and you have people who have the same interest. So who do you, who are you playing a role for if everyone's doing the same and everyone is just coming to be themselves or to express themselves as fully as possible? So why would you sell a different version from yourself if you could do just that?
Exactly. And that in itself is the act of faith for us, because that's what we're talking about all the time. Get out of your own way, which for us means, you know, make sure we know where the retreat will be, and that's all covered, and, you know, that there will be
that
food,
would be great.
you know, that kind of thing. But then the rest of it is show up and let the very first person who talks to us direct the flow, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And this was something that we found in the first retreat, as we showed up going, what are we supposed to do? Like, I've held retreats before, but surely we're supposed to be acting a certain way. And it took about the first day for us to realize that all of our anxiety went away as soon as we realized that the flow would be shown to us if we were just relaxed enough to pay attention. And that's exactly what happened, is that people would show up almost on cue and talk about something that led to the next conversation with someone else. And it really is impossible to not notice how seamless it all is when you're not in the way. And so the retreats have been educational for me in the extreme. And I've been at this for over half my life, but to be able to actually watch it so clearly embodied in a group of people who are working at the very same thing that we're all talking about here, it's just magical. It's life-changing.
Yeah, it feels like, and we were talking about it yesterday, I think with Gary, even, that it feels like sometimes it is the hardest thing to do, to be yourself. and that's very strange, because it should be actually a relief. It should be the easiest thing. But because we learned, it's like a muscle. So we kind of learn that we have to pretend to be something else. We have to, to be the way people expect us to be. And this is the learned mechanism. So it becomes easier. And this is so strange that this is the easy part. And just doing whatever feels right for you suddenly becomes such an obstacle.
Yeah, because all those things, all those stories, they reinforce this sort of narrative of what I should be, and it's reinforced over years and years and years. And we were talking about school before. That does a fantastic job of reinforcing a story. Oh, I'm doing this, I should be different. Gary, to your point with being, you're not interested in things. So it's like, oh, you must have ADHD. It's like, yeah, but I'm interested in all this other stuff. Like, I am interested in lots of things. It's just not this. So then there's this idea like, oh, then there's something wrong with me. And then I have to be different than what I naturally am, as opposed to just allowing for the space for people to explore that sense of themselves, what they're really interested in when they're not being pushed or pulled in some direction or another. And so, yeah, there are incredible opportunities to be just left with yourself, as yourself, with nothing expected of you, because there's so many ways that we sort of create expectations of ourselves through other people, but it's still just expectations of ourselves from ourselves. As much as we can pin it to other things, other people, it's like, I'm buying into this idea that this is the way for me to be, because I'm buying into the idea that I'm becoming something or should be more than what I am. But without all of those things in the way, it's like, oh, I can just explore this. I can just risk being seen for who and what I am. I don't have to live up to some narrative of myself, some expectations.
You have to be yourself. By the way, love is real. I'm going to say that. Okay. And I didn't know that until I started being myself. If you try, I'm completely changing the subject right now, but I was like, I want to say this publicly. I told Anna, I want to shout this from the rooftops. To anyone listening, love is real, but you have to be yourself. Be yourself. Find somebody who connects with who you really are. You'll feel it. I think you will. I think anyone listening to this, you'll feel it. It's not a scam. It's not a way that it's not an invention of Hollywood to boost morale. It's not something that's given by the government through a certificate. It's not some ceremony. It's real. It's something you can feel inside of you. Real, 100% love.
Yeah, but that's exactly the thing, that when you live up to expectations of other people and you pretend to be something else, then it's hard to connect with people who accept you for who you are and who like you, because they will like a version of you, and probably even the version that they are entertaining about themselves is already fake. And then there are things that kind of come together that don't really match, and people just try to make things work. They try to make relationships, friendships, whatever, jobs, everything work, but it always probably feels off, and then they buy into this narrative over and over again. And I had a realization this week, I think, or maybe last week, that I found a narrative about myself which was super false. And I thought that this is crazy, that for so many years I believed that Anna is a different person. So I had an idea about Anna, that she is like airy-fairy, inconsistent, and so on. And then I've realized, because people that I know kept telling me a different story, and I thought, oh, but they're actually right. Why am I telling myself the other one? Why? It's like, yeah, it's just the story we tell ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the point of love, it's so very important to be the kind of person who is confident enough or feels good enough within themselves not to be liked, not to necessarily vie for validation from others, but to be the kind of person who would be enough of a friend to tell you, sorry, Anna, you're actually full of shit. You're way more capable than you're telling yourself, and that might not seem loving to come across and contradict a narrative, because we get so attached to our narratives that sometimes we feel that even that person boosting us up is stopping us from tearing ourselves down, which is straight up comfortable and familiar and slightly addictive because of that comfort and that familiarity, right? And so this is why love doesn't always come across as being loving. Sometimes love can come across as being that swift kick in the ass. And this is something I say from experience as a parent, because that is also the case. If your kid's always happy with you, you're generally doing something wrong.
right? Yeah, and it's that willingness to look at where that, you know, expectation or need for someone else comes from as well. Like so much of our ideas of things and how things are going and our ideas of ourselves, like we'll make up these concrete sort of things. And the idea of, we've posted some videos about this, about need and like, what do humans actually need? And a lot of people, you know, well, you know, it's like food, water, shelter. Like to say, you know, if you're left on a deserted island, like, what do you actually need? It's like, those are your actual needs. Everything on top of that is a perceived need based on an assumption about yourself, or a reinforced story you've been telling yourself for years and years and years.
I would
and some of
put
those,
human connection.
yeah,
Human connection.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Is that a need?
I think so.
See, I would say that that's an assumption based on our own preferences, because I mean, there have been plenty of humans who have existed on their own. There have been hermits throughout time, and they've done just fine. But the fact that we don't feel comfortable on our own usually tends to make us default towards, you know, it's human nature. It's not me. It's human nature. We need people, or we all need people around. And unfortunately, there is no scientific basis for it whatsoever. There is a consensus, true, but that it's kind of like looking at, say, toddlers and saying, well, it's human nature to shit your pants. Right? It's like, we can develop, we can change, and in fact we do, but never if we're always sticking to what's comfortable, never if we're sticking to the familiar. But if you look at human nature and if you look at human history, it's always been those who have been willing to be alone that have pushed beyond the boundaries of the comfort and familiarity.
A little bit, for a little while. Yeah.
So I would say it's not in fact human nature, but it is very easy to pin it on human nature when we try to.
I would disagree, but I get what you're coming from. I get what you're saying. This would be a long discussion, I feel like, and this could derail the entire conversation.
Oh, it is definitely a conversation I look forward to having again in the future, Gary. Absolutely. Yeah. But that said, we are going to wind this episode down. I do want to say thank you to both of you for joining us here today. I do hope that we can get you onto one of our own roundtables at some time in the future. That would be a lot of fun. And aside from that, Gary, if you don't mind just leaving everybody with where they can find Optimum College, a little bit more information about it, and then I'll pass it over to Anna to give her the closing remarks, and then that'll be it for today's episode. But again, thank you both.
Oh, did we cut short? I didn't get cut short, did I? We could talk about it. Why I think human nature. Anyway. Okay. www.optimum.college. You can email me there.
Perfect. And of course, Gary is also on TikTok and Instagram for anybody who's interested in following his content. Definitely check out Optimum College. Anna, you have 20 episodes now of Insanity Podcast on your YouTube channel, correct?
Yes.
That is incredible. So I want to share this stat with you. It's something that Andrew and I discovered very early on. And so I'm really excited for you. But 95% of podcasters quit before recording their third episode. And then 95% of podcasters beyond that quit before episode 20. So you are already in the top like 5% of podcasters in the world, just by virtue of just sticking it out and continuing to do this for your own reasons. And so on behalf of ourselves, we're inspired by you. I love seeing the new content. On behalf of the community, we really appreciate you joining us here again. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I didn't even know about the percentage. It's really encouraging. And I'm currently cutting the next one, and I have a next one coming up. Yeah, so never quitting on that one. No, it's a lot of joy, and I'm very grateful that I'm back, that you're having me again. Love Dualistic Unity a lot, and looking forward to meeting you in November.
Absolutely.
No, and it's just another form of that ability to allow intelligence to be expressed. You know, the conversations that we have, like, this is intelligence at play right here. And so it's been a joy chatting with you guys, and I'm very, very excited for future conversations, and I look forward to chatting with you guys again soon.
You too, Andrew. It's been a pleasure. Ray, both you guys, thanks so much. We can talk about human connection. Why? I can defend my position. I can defend it.
Next chat, we'll get you.
Yeah, we will reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Again, thank you everyone who could join us. Dear listener, we appreciate you joining us as always. Do check out our own roundtable episodes, which we do every 2 weeks. Check it out on patreon.com/dualistic-unity. And aside from that, we look forward to having both of you back next time. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.